in judgment against the disorder of society. And we have got to break the silence and boldly identify poverty as a sin against God. We've got to regain our moral sense of urgency now, not tomorrow, now, not next week, now. The demand is up and out of poverty now. A failure. The heartbeat of the movement is here in this room.
3, 2, 1. Stop testing. 3, 2, 1. Stop nuclear testing. How's the sound, person? Have we stopped testing nuclear weapons? We have. Well, that's good to hear. Why do we have nuclear weapons? To be safer? Well, why don't we give nuclear weapons to the North Koreans and the Serbians so they can feel safe, and also all the people living in high crime areas? Then we can all be safe. Great. If logic prevailed, men would ride side saddle. Hi, my name's Jose, and I want to welcome you to Politically Correct Cooking, a show that is not only yummy for the tummy, but stimulating for the gray matter that resides between your ears. Now, our show today, it's about a subject that makes sense with the cooking show. It's about hunger. It's about homelessness. Here we are filming in the nation's capital, the capital of the most powerful nation in the history of the world, yet millions of people every day are hungry. Millions of people every night have no place to call home. Please welcome, talking about hunger and homelessness, Rick and Michelle. Come on down. All right.
Hi, Jose. How are you?
Fine. I'm just
How you doing, Jose?
I'm doing fine. How are y'all doing?
Pretty good.
Well, I'm glad you're on the show, especially the cooking show, to talk about hunger. Now, before we start the show, I want to find out what's on the menu. I'm looking at a lot of things that I've never seen before. I got this big yellow thing here, and what's cooking?
Well, we're cooking ramen. It's a dish that when I was in Japan for 5 years, I cooked almost daily, and it's a staple around our house.
Oh, good.
This big yellow thing you see is a radish. It's a pickled radish. It's called daikon.
Daikon.
And we have something from Korea. It's called kimchi.
Kimchi. I like that stuff.
And we have pickled tofu. We have pickled cucumbers. We have black mushrooms, pickled mustard greens, and we have gluten.
Well, I'm a glutton for that gluten.
All right.
Well, tell us what you want me to do here, and what I want to do is find out about hunger in America, homelessness in America. You're with an organization, Up and Out of Poverty. What is that about?
Well, Michelle will tell you about it, but you can start with the onions.
Okay.
Scallions, and then you can cut the ginger.
Okay.
Well, Up and Out of Poverty really started in 1989 out of a summit that was convened in Philadelphia by 3 organizations: the National Anti-Hunger Coalition, the National Union of the Homeless, and the National Welfare Rights Union. And it was supported financially by the United Church of Christ Office for Church and Society. And the purpose of the summit was to bring together victims of poverty to discuss what the conditions were that we were facing and what it was we were going to do about it. At that time, there was a summit going on in Geneva and a lot of discussion about it, and we decided there really needed to be a summit to talk about one of the greatest domestic problems we were facing, which was poverty. So,
and if you're a poor person, you just can't get on a flight to Geneva.
That's true. And not only that, it's hard to get the credentials, so somebody will let you in and then listen to you. So we really wanted to focus on what was happening here, and we understood that a lot of the things that are promoted in the media tend to be to divert our attention to what's happening here. And we should probably talk about what are some of the real conditions of poverty that are facing people. But I did want to say, out of that summit in 1989 came an organization of formation called Up and Out of Poverty now.
All right.
And the goal, of course, was to educate victims of poverty, to help teach them and provide support for them to organize, to be spokespersons on their own behalf, because they don't need people to explain why they're in what poverty is and how difficult it is and what's needed to get rid of it. What they really need are resources, information, and support.
Now, Up and Out of Poverty is a nationwide organization, or is it just a local?
Yes, a national organization that was the first stage of a movement to an attempt by the exploited classes to end poverty in this country. So now we've gone into the second phase, and
which is organizing.
And go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I mean, I think it's important, since this is politically correct cooking, that we ought to talk about what the base of information that we're working from. I work in the area of hunger in particular, and you know, we should probably talk about how much poverty there is in this country. 1 out of 4 children under the age of 6. Well, I'm sorry. 1 out of every 4 children is born into poverty in this country. That's 25%.
That's a very large percentage of the population. That's a very large percentage.
And after they pass the age of 6, 1 out of every 5 children remains in poverty. Now, poverty is related to hunger. We know that much. And
wish you would put it in the bowls.
I'm sorry. My husband wants me to put these in the bowls. Yeah, I know. He's a pain.
We know who wears
He's
the
a pain at home and away. Yeah, but in terms of hunger, the Food Research and Action Center did a study released in 1991, which showed that conservatively 1 out of every 5 children, or 1 out of every 4. I'm sorry. Let me go back. 1 out of every 4 children is hungry or at risk of hunger. That's roughly 11 million children. 1 out of every 8 children in this country is hungry at some point during the month. That means that their families don't have sufficient family, financial, or community resources in order to assure an adequate diet. And so what we found, which is no surprise to people in poverty, is that if you don't have enough money, then you're hungry. And that shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, but it was the first study of hunger ever done in this country. And that, should be appalling to some people.
And a hungry kid doesn't do well in school.
Hungry children don't learn well. Hungry children don't grow well. Hungry children are more likely to drop out of school. They're more likely to get involved in activities which later on the government finally decides to pay attention to them and wants to lock them up for forever.
Now, the media, pretty much people get a picture of what's going on through the media. A lot of times the media will say these are poor people, these are people on welfare. They always say people of color.
Right.
The reality is that most of the poor people are
Caucasian. In terms of when you look at things like families in poverty, people say, well, it's those single women who are just living at home, high off the hog, having babies. Average families on welfare are about 2.3. They have fewer than 2 children, average. There are 50% of all new marriages end in divorce, which means that once you're divorced, you have a much higher probability of falling into poverty and then being hungry. And the supports just aren't there. If you work in this country at a minimum wage job full-time, you make enough to be under the poverty level for a family of 3. So that's not saying very much about our country in terms of providing any kinds of assurances or support for its citizens or residents.
And a lot of the jobs that our country has are going pretty much, instead of going up the pay scale, people who are now, say, getting married, instead of being able to look forward to, say, owning a home, it's now, well, maybe can I afford the rent?
That's right.
A lot of people who at one time would have left the house to be on their own have to stay at home. So when you're talking about, say, for example, homelessness, people trying to get houses, about how many people would you estimate in the United States alone are, say, homeless?
There's a lot of estimations out, but I would say that the government really gives a very conservative count. We look at upwards 10 million people are actually homeless, and it could be even more than that, because if you look at the fact that a lot of us, even as adults, are living at home with our parents, and people are doubling up and tripling up with other siblings and other family members or friends, we find that homelessness is a much greater problem. But going back to something you said earlier, I mean, what's happening in the country is that the country is becoming more and more mechanized, and as it becomes more mechanized, it requires a more educated worker, and it also, we need less workers. Most of the industries that made this country the great country that it is, and it could be even better, is now mechanized, like the auto industry and steel, all of these now are done by robots, and robots have replaced workers. And we're faced with a problem now where this system of capitalism, which exploits people, have no need to exploit these workers anymore, because now they can exploit the robots. So if you don't need it, then why take care of them? So that's why we see what's going on in this country now, is that a lot of people are being cast by the wayside because they're not productive, and they are seen to be a drain on the economy, as it were.
So for example, going back to, say, the automotive industry, people who were making, I don't know, a very good wage, say upper middle class, say 15 years ago, all of a sudden have been working for this company. Now they're saying, hey, you got to go. They try to find a new job. The best job they can find is probably half the salary of their previous job.
Oh, I would say far less than half.
Far less than
McDonald's
half.
pays far less than half.
Because we're talking about people who at one time was making maybe $16, $20 an hour. And now those folks are on the dole.
Right.
And what we're finding also with the homeless problem is that you have whole families. You know, one time it would be the derelict, people who had maybe mental problems of a sort. But now you find whole families living out of cars, living out of cardboard boxes. And these are people who made this country. I mean, it's the working class, the class that is really suffering right now. And but we see that it's happening all over the place, because with white water and what's happening on the stock market, you see that the rich guys are fighting among themselves, and we're standing by victims of that fight.
You know, a couple of years ago, Up and Out of Poverty produced a video.
Yeah, there was a video, a documentary. It's called
Takeover.
Takeover. It's about people taking over homes. Now we have our audience pretty much Washington, D.C., Fairfax County, Montgomery County, richest counties in Virginia. In this video, we show people actually entering homes and taking them over. We want to stress to our viewers that if you go to New York City on a shopping trip, if you go to Ocean City on vacation, when you come back, your house is not going to be taken over. These houses are actually HUD houses.
HUD houses.
Now, what is a HUD house? And then let's go to the documentary so people can be aware of what the show's about.
Okay, quickly, a HUD house is one of the houses that was repossessed by HUD because of this economic situation that exists in the country, and those houses remain sitting because there are a lot of times there are court battles tied up with them, and also the government moves very slowly when it comes to dispersing housing and other things that people might need. So the film that you will see will show people taking over houses, and we primarily concentrate on HUD houses. Our organizational goal and idea is that what we should do is repossess what is ours, and those houses belong to the people who built them. And so
how many houses does HUD have under lock and key?
Well, there's a count of 55,000.
I think that, and that's what we did the video.
Yeah, that was when we did the video. But since then, there are much more, and it's probably even double, because cities also are going bankrupt. And cities had taken over, like Washington, have taken over some HUD housing, and because of the financial problems these cities face, they've had to back away and give the properties back to HUD, and then they sit dormant while people sleep in the parks.
Our position from Up and Out of Poverty is that if you have people who need housing, and you have housing that's available, it doesn't make any sense for that house to sit vacant when there are people, and force people to live on the streets. That is a brutal, unjust system, and we think it's intolerable.
And it's a sin.
It's a sin. It's a sin against God, and we should not allow it to happen.
Now, this video was made during the Bush administration?
Yes.
Right, so there will be frequent references to Jack Kemp. You remember a nice guy from New York, baseball player?
Football
player.
He's the loser on the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, he sure was.
Played with the losing Buffalo Bills.
Okay. Well, why don't we go to the video, and we'll be right back with more interesting stuff on the menu.
Smelling good.
Okay.
Smelling great.
It can happen to anybody. So many people have come to shelter. It's like I never even thought about it until it happened to me. Children are born into homelessness. There's babies in the shelter who have known nothing else but been homeless. It affects everybody.
Barbara Watson, she has a slip disc in her back, and the doctor told her she needs bed rest.
Is she someone special to you?
My mom. That's who I get all my knowledge from.
I became homeless due to my husband and myself had a business in New York City, and a maintenance business, and he had went to the bank to pick the payroll up Friday, and he got robbed and killed.
It was devastating because having somebody turn away from you like that, who you cared about very dearly.
We ended up being at my mother's, and my sister had a baby, and me and him were on a couch, and we kind of got, the house was too small, so I ended up taking the shelter route, and my sister said that she could take my son while I went to Dignity Shelter.
And I had nightmares over the night because I thought my mom was going to come back like my dad did.
When I did come around on the weekends, all I could remember was his eyes. We took these houses, and we're planning to take many more.
I like it now that me and my mom can live together.
We're together. We're a family. We're human beings. Everybody should have a place that they call home. And if this shell has to be what we call home, we're willing to stay here till Jack Kemp himself comes down and tells me that I have to go.
Jack Kemp is the head of HUD, a government agency. HUD's mandate is to help provide affordable housing for all Americans. When a homeowner can't pay their government mortgage, HUD repossesses their house. HUD has 50,000 of these houses standing vacant.
This is another great success.
Why?
Because all the homeless people come together and they show HUD that we can do something.
We've taken 5 houses in March, we've held our houses. We took this house today and we're going to keep on taking them because Jack Kemp promised the homeless people of America 10% of all HUD houses across this country. I'm not content because I'm in a comfortable, beautiful house. When there's brothers and sisters and people dying in the street, something is wrong in America, and we are here to straighten it out. This is our country.
It really gives an insight into what it's like to be homeless, to struggle for a home. Now, the woman who was, I guess, highlighted in the section of the documentary that we saw, what's the latest on her? Does she still have that home, or what happened?
Yes, well, she's still active with the organization with Up and Out of Poverty and now with the National Organizing Committee. And Philadelphia has a very strong housing organization called Dignity Housing. They're still in a home. And what happened in Philadelphia was that the city said if HUD wants the people out of the houses, they're going to have to take them out themselves. We are not going to do HUD's work for them. So as a result, the people are still in the housing, and because they've been organizing and they are very strong, they still have a place to live. But it's really important, I think, for people to know that that's a very compelling story. It could happen to anyone.
A lot of people out there are just, 1 or 2 paychecks away from, living in their cars.
Right, but the thing is that the reason that they're still able to remain in their house is because they're part of an organized constituency that is fighting to make sure that they don't get thrown out again. It's really through organizing and unity that you have strength.
And I guess like in a democracy, if you can organize the people, you become powerful. And
exactly.
A lot of people, the homeless, the hungry, are the people without power. You're changing that equation around.
Exactly.
True. Because we're not really in the housing business per se. It's actually it's helping people to come to a realization about the system that live in and how it affects them and how they can help other people to rise above this misery and pain that most of us face.
And fundamentally to achieve justice.
Yes.
Right. Now,
I just
while we were
wanna-
gone,
yeah.
you did all sorts of stuff to the bowls here. What happened? Looks good.
Oh, well, thank you. Now, the way it works is that you put all of the ingredients in the bowl, and you can put in what you like, and then you pour the soup and the noodles on top, and it cooks the vegetables. I added spinach to the bowls, and then some daikon, some gluten, maca abalone gluten. This is some kimchi. I love spicy
Kimchi is
foods,
great.
so kimchi.
Kimchi
I have kimchi.
Korean.
I also have spicy pickled bean curd. I have some black mushrooms here, which is a real delicacy. Here's some more wonderful gluten, braised gluten this time.
Okay.
And here's a pickled cucumber. I have some scallions in
And
here.
spinach.
So
And
basically
spinach.
what we've done
I
is we've
started
taken a very cheap meal and just turned it
made it-
into a culinary delight.
That's right.
This is going to be
Because
so
ramen
good.
really sells
Pickle
from the
mustard
store
green.
for 6 packs for $1 or 8 packs, and sometimes even 10 packs for $1. So
Best
you can
deal in
feed
town.
a lot of
And
people.
doing this, you can feed people and give them a good meal. Very interesting stuff. Okay. Now, we have millions of viewers coast to coast. They're saying to themselves, you know, I'm finally seeing like what the situation is with the homeless people. The documentary that was just shown gives us an inside view. What can you tell people in, say, the next couple of minutes if they see a homeless person or they see a family living in the car? A lot of times people just put their blinders on and ignore them, or they see a homeless person asking for money, they just like walk right past them quickly. How can they just kind of make their day a little better, even though it's kind of hard?
Well, I think you really countered that with information. People really need to understand where the situation comes from and how many people it affects and how easily it affects them. That in fact that we have a country that functions on the basis of profit and not on the basis of meeting people's needs. And because of that, people fall through the cracks. Justice and assuring that people have what they need in this country is not a priority. Private enterprise, accruing profit, and ensuring that no matter what, profit remains is what is key in this country. So we have to organize to fight back. When you see a homeless person on the street, one of the things you can do is to get angry at the fact that this country, the wealthiest country in the world, would allow millions of people to live in the brutality of the streets rather than give them a home simply because it can't make a profit off of them if they don't have enough money to pay for it.
And the market is controlled in that way. The housing market is based on a whole supply and demand theory, which all the markets for clothes, cars, whatever, and profit is really made when the demand is high and the supply is low. So you have little food and a lot of people hungry. You have few houses and a lot of people homeless. And that situation in the days and time that we live in now can be easily corrected. We have the means and the know-how to solve those problems.
Well, we have the very fortunate occurrence on the Politically Correct Cooking Show of having a high demand for your ramen, and we have a big supply of the ramen. Do you think we might be able to try a little bit here?
Oh, yes.
Oh, we certainly can. And I think it's important for people to remember, we don't have hunger because there's not enough food. We are the breadbasket of the world. We have hunger because of an inequitable economic system that doesn't distribute the resources equitably.
There's so much
we've
waste
got a lot,
in this country.
and we want to share what we have right here.
Okay. Well, we're watching the master chef at work over there.
He's going to make a mess.
Oh, well. And since we're watching him serve the food here, I'm just going to ring the dinner bell here and see if there might anybody in the studio here hungry.
Thanks.
All right, come on down. Uh-oh, look who's here. How y'all doing?
Fine.
Are you all hungry?
Yes.
Do you like ramen?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, we're just looking at this. Do you know this gentleman behind who's serving it?
Yes. That's my father.
Is he a good cook at home?
Yes.
All right. Well, we got the official word here. You're a good cook. I'll take it.
I thought you might.
Folks at home,
come on.
Thanks for watching the show. We hope you learned something. Folks here in the studio, we're going to get to eat some ramen. Thanks a lot.
Yay.
Have a nice day. See you next show. Bye. Bon appetit. See you later. Yummy.
Good stuff.
And they believe it.
Let's not play No housing, no peace. No housing, no peace. No housing, no peace. No housing, no peace. No housing, no peace.
marched all the way to Washington, not to listen to the President of the United States, not to listen to no movie star or politician, to make it plain that homeless people and people of poverty are taking their own initiative. And we waited for the opportunity for